So we're in Tel Aviv at Sedona's new headquarters, and the first thing we notice when we come into the building is this map of the world. So I'm here with Ori, and he's going to tell us about why this map is here and what it represents.
Yes, my goal was to allow people coming into the office to understand what we're doing, what we're about, without even opening a computer. So we put this map here that represents the world, of course, the optic layer in white, and then on top of it you have these blue lines representing links between routers. So I can explain that our system basically provides this view of the network, and through this you can understand which IP link goes over which optical paths, and so on and so forth.
Okay, excellent. I'm not sure anybody has a computer screen this big, so this is probably a good way of representing it.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's go and have a chat about some of the other things that Sedona is doing to help network operators with their challenges.
Wonderful. Let's go.
So Ori, Sedona has been doing a lot of work with network operators over the year around different use cases and applications, but can you tell us about a new instance, a new application you've been working with some operators?
Yes, as you've said, the more we penetrate into networks, we see more and more interesting use cases for our technology. I think one of the most interesting ones is how we can help with mergers and migrations of networks. I call it M&M.
Okay.
So
easy to remember.
Easy to remember, yes, yes. M&Ms are very hard. They're notorious to be very labor-intensive. They take a long time, and so it's an area where we believe we can help a lot. In general, automation is very helpful for those use cases.
Okay. Can you give us a few examples, because there would be different use cases even within M&Ms?
Yeah, it's a broad category. I'll give you a few examples. The first one would be mergers of large networks. So you have two service providers consolidating or merging.
Okay.
A good recent example is CenturyLink and Level 3, for example. And when those organizations merge, one of the key things they can do to improve the overall company, the overall network, is to merge the actual network assets.
Right.
So the better they do it, the more successful the merger of the company is. Another example is migration of services from old networks to new networks. So we're seeing quite a few operators buying new networks, could be IP networks, optical networks, generally modernizing their infrastructure. And specifically, one of the cases we're seeing is migration from TDM to IP. So a good example is Verizon, who bought a huge metro IP and optical network to do just that.
Okay.
In this case, if you don't migrate services from the old network to the new network, instead of having one OpEx sucking network, you wind up having two OpEx sucking networks. So it's not necessarily a good idea. And another example, which we've talked about in the past, is migration from non-SDN networks to SDN-based networks.
Right.
And this could be either new networks that operators buy for the purpose of automation and SDN, or it could be just adding an SDN control structure on top of their existing network. And in both cases, the goal is to try and minimize the impact on the network of migrating services and network assets to the control of SDN.
Okay. So some of those examples sound very manually intensive. What are the big challenges around the processes involved in these different migrations?
Yes, so indeed these are very manually intensive and prolonged processes. And the classical way of doing this is to put an army of people to audit the network, find how everything is connected, and then another smaller army of people to actually reconfigure or configure the network to implement the required changes. And these processes have a few issues. They basically miss a few key performance metrics that they need to meet around accuracy, around the speed of the process, the cost of the process, and the impact on services.
Okay.
From an accuracy perspective, the issue is that typically the way that people merge networks is they use inventory systems, right? Now I've heard from different service providers that their inventory systems are anywhere between 30% accurate to 70% accurate. That's horrible. Imagine how you would merge a network with that level of inaccuracy.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? It's a recipe for a disaster. And if you don't get a disaster right away by merging, later on when there's some failure in the network is a lot more brittle. It'll break a lot more easily and the impact will be a lot higher. That's accuracy. In terms of cost, putting hundreds of people on the job for a prolonged time, we've heard some service providers who say that the migration process from an old to new network will take more than 10 years.
Wow.
Imagine that. So hundreds of people for 10 years is a lot of cost. And that's just the direct cost of the process itself. Imagine the fact that the process is so slow that you have to maintain two networks now in parallel for 10 years. It has impact both in terms of power. Newer networks have a power consumption of perhaps half that of old technology. And in terms of footprint, you need 10% of the footprint of old technology. So you can free up real estate, you can free up people not having to know how to use the old network. So there's that indirect cost, which is a lot higher than the direct cost. And finally, one thing we've heard from one customer is that on old networks they have a challenge of getting spare parts to replace failed components. There's just no way to find them. They had a budget of X millions of dollars and they could only spend 20% of it because they just couldn't find the parts. So all this, if you shorten the process, you can solve. The third performance indication is speed of the process. So again, manual processes take a long time and they're just not fast enough. And finally, service impact. Again, with all this inaccuracy in manual processes, there's a real risk of affecting a lot of customers. And the last thing you want with these M&M processes is customers leaving you because they're not getting the service they deserve.
Right. So, I mean, these M&M situations and processes aren't going to go away. So what can Sedona do to help mitigate some of these challenges?
Luckily, they're not going away because we think we can help a lot with mitigating those challenges. And really, the things we bring to the table, the assets we bring, is accurate understanding of the network, not from the inventory, but from the network itself. The ability to intelligently automate and optimize the network. So with that, what can we do? In terms of accuracy, the problem is pretty much solved once you learn the network from and the services from the network, not from inventory systems. So that problem we've covered. In terms of speed, again, automation of the processes, both the audit process as well as the implementation process. And here we can use our ability to provision services across multiple optical domains, multiple IP domains. So speed of the process becomes a lot faster. We believe we can do it in months instead of in years in some cases.
Right, wow.
Right. Yeah, and in terms of the cost of the process, again, much lower cost because you don't need hundreds of people for 10 years. And a lot fewer people to just monitor the process, make some key decisions and not actually do the work. And in terms of service impact, that's I think where the impact is most, or the difference is most dramatic. We can do this with hardly any traffic hit, sometimes without any traffic hit at all, because we orchestrate the process in a way that we can cut over from the old to the new when everything is set up in the new network and everything is verified.
Okay, so that sounds like a lot of examples that would hit the needs of CTOs, CFOs, a lot of big decision makers in network operators. So be interesting to see as these M&M processes continue to take place in the industry, how Sedona can help to meet those challenges. So Ori, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.